We're in a fortunate and unique position where we have a very broad platform of solutions, and we serve a large constituency of different actors in the supply chain: enterprise shippers, consignees that are receiving them from the enterprise shippers, suppliers that are providers to the enterprise customers, freight forwarders, 3PLs, airlines, carriers of various types, right? So we have a lot of parties, government agencies, parties involved in the supply chain that are a part of the Descartes community, and we have a very large solution footprint that addresses point needs in some cases for each of those players. But when you can put things together that cover, what in some cases are the white spaces on how those two players in a bilateral relationship or even in a three-partite relationship in some cases come together to execute movements in the supply chain, there's some additional value that can be created, some friction that can be taken out of the supply chain for those parties. And that might translate in today's inventory coming out of the supply chain. It might translate into better cost negotiations with the carrier if you can settle with them more quickly through systems that you're using, and the ability to both look at invoices online at the same time, remove this back and forth billing process out of the equation, and get to a settling point quickly. And that's where we, because we have this wide footprint, we've been spending more and more time on trying to make it work together. So you hear us talking about things like fleet and for hire being brought together because we have deep capabilities in both transportation management and routing and scheduling. And if I can leverage my fleet for supplier pickups and backhauling, if I can leverage my fleet potentially to put out to a brokerage market in some cases, if I can do comparisons between what vendor terms are for shipping in that world and decide, is it worth it for me to pick it up? Should I let the vendor ship it, or should I put it outside to a for-hire carrier? Can't really do that very well unless you can span both sides of that to understand the planning as well as the daily execution of what's happening with the outside fleet, and understanding what your options are in a for-hire world as well as a vendorship world. And then you've got the collaborative aspects of that, where you have to be able to coordinate with the vendor on when things like ready to ship, what's going to be there, when's it going to be available, what carrier am I going to have show up to get it if I'm going to elect to not have you ship it and bring it out. So I'm getting a little deep there on that one particular example, but when you start putting these things together and then working with some great clients like we do, you tend to get into some very nuanced aspects, that little things that can drive value. Another example is where we have our own warehouse management system. It's not something we're really known for in the marketplace, but we do have a WMS that's been used for quite some time by the forwarder market as a part of their the services that they provide their customers. And we've put that WMS together for other industries with our reservations final mile dynamic scheduling system, and the niche that fits into, that's another one of these white spaces that we've perceived in the market is, I've got my big warehouse and I've got my big warehouse management system, but then I have satellite facilities where maybe I'm working with contract delivery agents, or I have a satellite operation of my own that's a small footprint, a little more than a cross dock in some cases, right? So maybe there's some, more than a few hours worth of inventory being stored there. Once things are inbound to that location, I need to have a planning and execution strategy for, in some cases, kitting, assembly, deluxing if you're in the furniture industry, tasks that may happen at this satellite facility. For instance, if returns are coming back from the delivery activities, I need to be able to capture that in inventory, right? Things get lost before they get to the big WMS back at the warehouse. Maybe they should be going directly back to a supplier, depending on the incident. Maybe they have to be scrapped, and those are the kind of things that we've put that aspect of running a facility in a warehouse and keeping track of inventory, plus some tasks that have to take place, with the final mile scheduling piece that says, now that I have these goods coming inbound, I need to make my final delivery confirmations out to the customer. And having the two working together has added some value for some customers. Hopefully we'll be talking about here in the not too distant future. The TMS space continues, I think, to surprise with just when you think that you've got the functionality covered. TMS is a mature space. New players come in. Expectations from customers change, so it continues to be dynamic. I think defying maybe some expectations of other folks in the market. There's always, I think, more room for improvement, and for us, in particular, in the customers that we have that look to us for transportation management capability, I'd say that I mentioned fleet and for hire earlier together, and Ed talked a little bit about that during his session today. That's a notable area for us where we think that we are differentiated, but we also have very deep small pack parcel execution capabilities, full parcel manifesting system capabilities, where I can not only at the planning level of the TMS decide what should go which mode, parcel through container freight, how should you consolidate it, be able to rate across those parties, but also transition seamlessly into execution where my TMS may live in the cloud, but my labeling, pick, pack, ship process from a parcel execution standpoint could still be line side down at a warehouse utilizing the same rates, for instance. I think for us, the concept, the footprint of what we have been building, as well as been encouraged to do by our customers from a TMS standpoint, continues to expand into areas like I'll call it inbound collaboration. I think dock appointment scheduling is something that is talked about periodically in the market. Appointment setting for carriers to reduce congestion at facilities, but we've been I think fortunate to have customers who've worked with us to take it beyond the simple concept of the calendar that's sitting, it's an outlook for a warehouse that you put slots and bookings into for carriers, to really looking at having full transparency and visibility to information back in the TMS of when the vendor is ready to ship, when it goes, getting statuses from their carriers, whether or not you're booking that freight or not, right? Which is not a trivial thing. If you aren't paying the carrier to move the load for you, it's not necessarily a natural thing for them to provide statuses to another party in some cases. And understanding the purchase orders, the items that are a part of that inbound load, that being able to decide dynamically, am I going to take it direct into the warehouse at a door, or am I going to put it in the yard, or I'm going to do a partial unload of that, and keeping track of what's sitting in inventory in the yard before you've received it into the warehouse, for instance. That's expanded the scope and footprint of what we would refer to as TMS for us. There again is another area I think where at its roots, route optimization. I've got some trucks, I've got some stops, I have some territories, and I need to come up with a better plan. Has been that's where I started my career a long time ago, and it's an area that I think has been under some focus from supply chain professionals for quite some time. But it's evolved from the pure planning and optimization, where maybe I'm planning now for what's going to happen over the next quarter, I think, for my routes and master stop plan, or today for tomorrow, to something that is becoming much more dynamic. And that is bringing together this mobile world with the route optimization and planning capabilities and dynamic dispatch capabilities I've been working on. And a lot of what's driving that in the marketplace is the customer service expectation, the delivery expectation. It's not good enough any longer to take the order and tell someone, I'll get back to you, I'll call you the morning of and let you know when we're going to be there for your delivery. How about sometime next Thursday all day, I'll let you know, on Thursday morning or Wednesday night when I'm going to be there. That doesn't work with people's lifestyles now for a lot of the businesses and industries that I think are attracted to our routing mobile and telematics solutions, because we put a lot of focus on the integration of those three, right? Making sure that not only can I plan, but also I can replan as a day evolves, as things change on the street, as goods availability changes, as the warehouse is doing its thing. We can very efficiently and quickly roll with those punches and push that information out to the customer to let them know everything's good. It's not great, but we'll still be there, or we got a problem and we need to reschedule you, for instance, and push that to their phones, push that to their emails, that kind of stuff. So closing that loop has been a big focus area, I think, for our customers, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to serve them in that. And if you extend that now to the regulatory environment in particular, where hours of service, AOBR requirements, or whatever the latest acronym is now, it keeps changing from the industry on the electronic driver logs, essentially. That's kind of a gateway process for us, for a lot of our customers, because they need to put in electronic logs. They want to get compliant in that area, and then there's a benefit if that's already tied back into a proof of delivery system, dispatch and execution system, maybe a electronic vehicle inspection capability as well, down through planning, right? And customers don't like integration science projects, and it doesn't mean that our system is the right one in all circumstances for all customers, and we do have partners where we integrate different telematics or mobile solutions into what we do on the planning side. But if what we bring to the table fits, there's some ultimate benefit to that customer, because it's more a flexible and dynamic environment than what usually can be put together for when you're integrating disparate systems. We use it as a way to try and put a conceptual wrapper around the process that inbound supply chains can be complex. International as well as domestic suppliers come into play. A mix of freight that you may be paying for goods that are coming inbound to you is also out there with vendor paid freight. If you put all of the elements together, what that says is that I need to have an ability to do purchase order, essentially to warehouse receipt visibility, to understand what's coming into my supply chain before it hits my WMS, and that entails a degree of collaborative capability with some suppliers. The whole world isn't EDI or electronic messaging enabled, and they need tools to support them in being able to respond to our customers for ASNs. Availability confirmations for goods, what's going to be available to ship when, being able to work in a fashion between the supplier, the carrier, and the warehouse coordination staff on appointment slots and booking, yard management, as I described before, transportation management, if I'm going to be responsible for a portion of that inbound freight, or I need to make a decision on what portion do I want to pull away from the supplier or put on my fleet who might be servicing primary distribution store fulfillment, but I want to put some of that inbound load on my trucks to backhaul in. So you put all of those pieces together, the purchase order management, the dock appointment scheduling, the yard management, and what inventory is sitting in the yard, the transportation management decisions of both inbound and outbound that come into play, and then the fleet management pieces that say some of that I may actually want to pull into my trucks. And that's a big mouthful, and trying to put logistics flow control around that, where the entire concept really is take control of your inbound supply chain. Whether you are executing the freight or not, you still have a stake in taking control of the inbound supply chain, and there's tools and procedures that can help you do that. I think it is an elusive challenge for a lot of companies still, right? And this is something that's, we've been at it, you've probably been writing about visibility systems for a long time. We've been at it for building visibility systems for sure for a long time. And I think we're, back at the beginning of the visibility system process, this may be a bit of an overcharacterization, but it was a bit of a visibility for visibility's sake. Let me figure out what I can't see that's going on out there. And there was a lot of discussion around things like event management and dynamic, I see something going wrong and I'm going to dynamically deal with that in my supply chain. Well, the reality is, it's a lot of work. You have to be committed to going out and procuring this data and standardizing it and getting into a system and really rounding up the parties you need to get that data from. And that's partly what we help customers do. But having it and having a bunch of alerts flooding your inbox and populating a dashboard for some customers maybe end up being demoralizing. I see all this stuff happening, but I have no ability to influence it, right? And what am I going to do with this information? And we've had great visibility projects, and in others, they've been challenged to get a ROI out of simply having visibility to the things you can't do anything about, right? Because you're lacking the operational control. So what I think visibility kind of morphed into over the years for not just us, but a lot of players is, it was an eye-opener, but then it just opened your eyes to the fact you need to do a lot more work in managing your inbound supply chain. We need to put procedures and systems in place that allow you to take more operative control. And then visibility becomes a byproduct, a benefit of having more operating systems and procedures in place for managing an inbound supply chain, not just having some sort of sight into it. I think you'll see more of what we have been doing. We're going to continue to invest and go deeper and deeper on bringing together fleet and for hire. I think that you'll see us doing more with enabling the mid and small carrier space to interact with our customers. We have a portal system. We're just launching a mobile platform that allows carriers that you're not going to put a ruggedized device in their hands that costs $1,500. They need to operate on their smartphone and still have some limited tracking, tender response, photograph taking capabilities, proof of signature capture, proof of delivery. But they're not a dedicated carrier to you necessarily, right? They may be handling some loads on a periodic basis. So you'll see more investment from us in enabling the collaboration with the outside carrier world. I think that we're doing a lot in the customs and international supply chain space, and in some cases the lines are blurring there as well, right? Where people want to take more responsibility for international execution.